masterclass is all about why your child cries whilst they're sleeping. Because yes, your child does cry when they're sleeping. And it can be can make you feel a little bit uncomfortable that they do. Because when you have a newborn and you bring your newborn home and they're crying, we just sort of presume that there's something wrong. We need to stop the cry. Something is wrong, whether that's that your child is hungry or they need to have a diaper change or something. They're uncomfortable, something. That we need to do whatever we need to do to stop the cry. And that's actually kind of how the cry is designed, so that it's hard for us to ignore. Because if it was really easy for us to ignore, then I'm not sure the human race would be here. So it's actually designed that we will kind of do what we need to do to stop it. And it's really effective. We're still here. It's really effective. And as well, then we have this parental bond that we don't want to be seeing our child upset. We know what crying is. We know why your child is crying. It's because something is wrong. The same way that you and I cry when something's wrong. But we can also cry laughing, and we can also cry, for a whole multitude of reasons, but we cry when something's wrong. And so when you see that your infant is crying, then, we need to do something about it. We need to stop it. Now, this can get this confusing, because if your child is sleeping there and they start crying, what do you need to do? What do you do? So first off, if you ever hear your child crying that big urgent cry, and you know the one, I call it the "mummy, I need you now" cry. It's that really big urgent cry that your child does. It's the cry that makes you jump out of bed before you're even awake. Don't ever ignore that cry. Don't ever even attempt to ignore that cry. It's incredibly hard to do, and that really is your child asking for some help. There is something going on when it's that big urgent cry. And it could be that your child is really hungry. It could be that they need a diaper change. It could be that they've got a stomach ache. It could be a whole whatever. No, they could just need to know that you're still around. And it doesn't matter what that is, but go and help them at that big urgent cry. So even if you feel that they were completely asleep, oh look, you're really in a really deep sleep now, and then boom, they're wide awake, but it becomes that really big urgent cry. Don't ever ignore that one, ever. Always go and help your child, really, whenever you hear that. But if your child is sleeping and they start making some noise, which maybe just sort of is a bit more kind of chatty, and then it gets a little bit more of a feel that it's beginning to get sort of a cry, depending on your child's sleep personality, will depend on how long it takes for that to happen, and then how that cry will change. Some children will just be more of a, quite a, I'm just kind of a, waking up. And it just can be just not very enthusiastic, but just more of a wah, wah, wah. Then your child is, I would say they're okay. Be there if you want to be there, certainly, so that you can be there if they wake up or that cry does begin to ramp up. If your child has a bit more of an intense sleep personality, it will ramp up quite quickly. And that's just who your child is. There's nothing wrong necessarily. There's nothing wrong with them. That's just who your child is. And that cry will ramp up a little bit quicker. And then you're going to need to be helping a little bit quicker. But if your child is beginning to sort of be noisy and is beginning to sort of get a little bit of a cry, if you want to go to your child, then by all means do. Don't feel that you can't go to them. It's completely fine for you at any point to go to your child. And then just kind of see what's going on. What's happening here? Are you just transitioning from one sleep cycle to the next, which is a lot of reason why this happens, why your child does cry whilst they're sleeping. They're coming into a really, really light sleep, and as they're, trying to get back down into a deeper sleep, they're actually kind of awake, lightest sleep. And so they may cry a little bit as they then going back down into a deeper sleep. So that's where that sort of, if it's just noisy, and it's just a little bit of a cry, that's where that holding back can actually be good. Because you can imagine if you just quickly then kind of jumped in and picked your child up, you are certainly going to be waking them up. And actually, they may have been able to get themselves back into a deeper sleep. So just give them that little bit of time just to see either whether the cry ramps up or they're able to go back down into that deeper sleep. And you didn't need to help them at all. They were going back down into a deeper sleep. Now, another reason that babies can cry is because of they dream. We all dream. We have REM sleep. So babies have the same kind of dream sleep, the same things going on in the brain anyway, from about 3 months of age. Now, what babies dream about, I'm not sure. Probably boobs and milk and your fabulous face. I would imagine that's it. Now, we don't know really what they're dreaming about, because the only way we can tell sort of when people are really dreaming and what's happening with dreams is by waking people up whilst they're sleeping and asking them. And before 2 years old, we're not great at communicating what we were dreaming about. And even then, at 2 years old, we're still actually not great at communicating what we were dreaming about. As I'm sure you can imagine, there's a lot of sort of language that goes into that. And I think as well, a lot of kind of understanding what dreams are. Because when you think about it, they're really weird. They're really weird. So your child is going, the same things are going on in the brain as they happen when we dream. You may notice that your child their eyes are kind of fluttering. Their eyes are closed, but their eyelids are moving. They may twitch a little bit. That's maybe when you get those little smiles. They're in quite a light sleep. And we imagine, that they're dreaming. I'm going to say, they're dreaming. I think they are dreaming. Of boobs and your fabulous face. That's what they're dreaming about. But the same way that your child will cry as they are awake, similar thing, I imagine, if they're dreaming, can happen whilst they're asleep. So it doesn't mean that they're necessarily coming, wide awake. When they're a little bit of a deeper sleep, as they're in the kind of dream sleep, then I would imagine that they can cry then as well, because they're dreaming. Just think, there are some adults who talk in their sleep. I think it's like a similar, just view it as a similar kind of thing. Now, remember, if it is that big urgent cry, always pick up your child, always help your child if it is that big urgent cry, because something's going on, whether it's that they're uncomfortable, they're in pain, or they just need a hug and they just need to know that you're there. Please respond to them when it is that big urgent cry. That is them asking for help, and you should always help them when it's that big urgent cry. You would do it when they're awake, and therefore you should do it when they're asleep. Just because the sun goes down does not mean that we shouldn't be responsive to our children. We most certainly should be, the exact same way that we are during the day. Is crying when your child's sleeping a problem? Not really. Now, of course, if this is something that you are concerned about, you should go and talk to your child's doctor about this. Just mention it if it is something that you are concerned about. But it's not really a problem. Waking up, crying a little bit when awake or eyes closed and asleep can happen a few times a night. It can happen more than a few times. It could happen 3 or 4 or 5 times a night. Normally, these are quite quick and your child will be back down to sleep. If this was going on for a long time, then you may want to talk to your pediatrician about this, just to get it out there, just to sort of let them know. I don't think that it's necessarily a problem, but it's worth mentioning. And of course, if ever you are concerned about anything your child is doing, always mention that to your pediatrician. Remember, your instinct is incredibly powerful. If you think something's wrong or something is worrying you, it is worth talking to your child's pediatrician about this, so that you can get anything that needs to be fixed, and just that peace of mind. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Let me know, have you ever seen your child cry when they're asleep. I remember that my two would do this. It wasn't something that they would do often. Occasionally they would. And oftentimes it was even by the time that I'd got to them that they were back down asleep. But just giving them that little bit of time for me to actually wake up and sort of get set up, and then to the edge of the bed. They were in because we were room sharing, and they were back down to sleep. It never was anything that went on very long, but I certainly saw this happen. Something that your child as well is going to grow out of. That I guarantee.